I'm Forrest Griffin.
Brian Caraway.
And Miesha Tate.
What's up, guys? This is Joseph Benavidez, UFC flyweight.
Hi, this is Greg Jackson, and you're listening to It's MMAzing, and that is an amazing pun.
Get it? Like MMA, but amazing? Amazing.
Radio.
Welcome to It's MMAzing Radio. I am your host, Dr. Law. With me, as always, DJ Mark.
What's up?
This week, DJ Mark, this is the week we get you a PS5. I'm calling it.
Sure.
Also joining
about it.
Don't step on my bit, Mike. Also joining me this week, Lavender Gooms.
A little bit of fun fact for you guys. That's a day late. July 18th was National Ice Cream Day. So get yourself a DeLorean, go back a day, and get yourself some ice cream. Or just
2
wait,
days for the listeners.
Just wait a year.
Mike,
for the next one.
This is also the week we get you a PS5. I'm feeling it. I got a good feeling. All right?
And by we get you a PS5, that means you're paying for it?
No, man. If I find you a link, that should be enough. That's basically an opportunity. Hey, man, you can sell it. I'm giving you an investment opportunity. That's what I'm doing.
Sure,
That's
man, you giving me a link. Link me your bank account.
Well, let me tell you.
Hook me up.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me tell you, though. It's going to be on Walmart, so chances are nobody's getting anything. Also, fellow member of the Cool Kids Club that has a PS5, Kid Presentable.
You know, I've risen above the fray. It's like Daniel Cormier's Lil Wayne song goes, you know, there's only heaven at the top when there's nothing up above it. That's where we're at, Bobby. You know, we've truly made it to the pinnacle. And just for Mike's pettiness right there, you know what? I'm going to buy a PS5 and I'm going to flip it for lots of profit and just sell it for lots of profit.
And Mike's just like, that's his plan.
There you go.
Yeah. Mike's either left us or it froze. We don't know what's happening. But he's giving him
froze.
I like to think he conceded defeat on the PS5.
I didn't know if it was that Stefan froze and the rest of us were looking at him like, well, his shit just crapped out. But I guess it was my shit that crapped out.
It is. Your camera still just you giving a real disdainful look at Stefan. Let me tell you.
I mean, honestly, as far as freeze framing goes, not bad. He looks a little
disdained,
but he doesn't look a fool.
Just judgmental
as we often do.
Well, it's a good thing this is an audio medium, so at least my voice is coming through okay.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
See if you can turn your camera on and off, man, and see if that helps. All right, boys and girls, we've reached the part of the podcast, or the time of year in the podcast, post Conor McGregor fight, where ain't nobody listening to us or watching these fights. Let me tell you. But this past weekend, we had, as I refer to told my friends to watch, all these ones who talked about Conor last week. Let me tell you, none of them watched this when I told them new Khabib is fighting. And no, they're like, I got stuff to do. So Islam Makhachev is what I was calling the dude. Apparently we're now at Makhachev, which, I mean, let's just
silent, I guess.
I don't know. I'm just saying, let's just get it. I mean, let's just get it right at the beginning. So I'm not
it's
calling
like
the dude
Jose Aldo. You know, I'll admit it took me a while to finally adopt that, but you know what? Things evolve with time. They're fluid, Bobby. They're fluid.
But they told us at the beginning, Jose, like fight 2 or 3. They told us we're like 12 fights into Islam's UFC right here.
In this case, if he is also Dagestani, right, and Khabib's name is pronounced, Kh, the K-H-A.
Well, it's
we
Habib.
got a K-H-A in the middle of his name.
A lot of people are saying Habib, by the way. Just saying, a lot of people are now saying Habib. So I don't know.
We need some clarification on how we say these people's names.
Yeah, you know what? We do. Yeah, he was just throwing Thiago Moises all over the damn place, Mark. He pretty much had his way in every level in that fight, huh?
It was a really interesting fight. You know, we haven't gotten a ton of looks at Islam just because has it been injuries or people ducking him?
Nobody wants to fight him. He turns you into a pizza pie, just throws you in the air.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's natural to have a lot of comparisons with Khabib because they come from similar camps. They have very similar styles, but it was really interesting to see Islam fight and see the areas where I think he's a little better than Khabib. I think he put a lot better pressure standing up. I think his hands are a lot better. I think his stand up is really good because I think Khabib left a lot to be desired in those departments. What I was a little critical of is there wasn't a lot of urgency to get the fight to the ground early on. He did get to the fight to the ground every round, including the second round where he got taken down and was able to reverse position extremely quickly. But it was a little concerning to see him want to play the stand-up game as long as he did. He did extremely well there. He pressured Thiago against the cage. He landed really good hands. He had a good setup for his left hand. He had a good left kicks to the body. And then in the clinch, it was kind of interesting. Thiago showed a lot of strength there. He was able to push Islam up against the cage. He was able to take center there. Like I mentioned, the second round, he was able to get a double, and Islam went for a guillotine. He took him down very quickly. He was able to scramble and get his back. And then in the third and fourth rounds, we saw, I think, Islam, the conditioning really came into play there. He was able to, in the clinch position, get his back like Khabib does so well. And once he's riding his back, that's one of the positions where Khabib really makes these guys work. What I kind of noticed in the difference is...
Wait, was that when he got almost, when the guy threw up the triangle? Was that was in the third round or fourth round?
That was the fourth. So the third is where he got his back in the clinch, and that's where Khabib, gets that position often. And what Khabib does really well is he lets those guys work themselves back up just to drag them back down. And I think that really tanks a lot of guys. And what I noticed in Islam's top game is there wasn't as much advancing, there wasn't as much scrambles, there wasn't as much as him just riding on top and grinding him out. What I saw more with Islam was really solid control. He wasn't letting the guy advance too much, some decent ground and pound. And it was really a tactical display of him waiting for his moments to explode, to get the takedowns, and ultimately finish the fight in the fourth. So it was a really mature approach. Someone that obviously has a really good skill set. It's hard at this point to say, like, oh, he's exactly at Khabib's level. He is the next coming, but we have to see him fight more credible guys than Thiago Moises here.
He's trying, but man. He's really trying.
No, but this was a great showing. He looked basically flawless in this fight.
First 5-round fight.
Yeah, and again, like, the stamina is not an issue. That is actually something that played right into his favor. He had a lot of time to work. He had a lot of time for the other guy to kind of spin his wheels and get him tired. And like you mentioned, in the fourth round, I think that's really where we saw the conditioning of the two fighters really take a big pivot, where Islam was very fresh. That was the round where he actually shot a double, got in so deep. He got so deep in that double and was able to lift him up so effortlessly. And it was interesting. He went from a double to a single to try to do a more high angle slam. And to Thiago's credit, that's where he tried to slap on a triangle, and he wasn't able to get that big slam that he wanted. But from that position, he was able to advance to back and get the choke.
You know what I liked? You did mention this. I found interesting. We said that he took too long to go to the ground. It's a man who's got knocked out before. He's got a knockout loss on his UFC record, Islam Makhachev. So I did appreciate Javier Mendez just being like, who's there for striking, who's just like, yeah, man, I need you to take him down. Let's just what are we fucking around with here? You guys hire me to stand here and tell you guys to take him down.
Really a criticism of him not playing to his strengths, but he looked good in the stand-up. Like, he looked really, I mean, there was no point in which
I thought Thiago was surprised. He was like, what the hell? Like, I expected to be taken down.
His hands were sharp. He was setting things up to land that left straight. He was breaking through Thiago's guard. We saw more of a stand-up, and it looked very polished, especially when you factor in all of his other tools, his grappling regiment, to be as proficient as he was in the stand-up, and not just throwing strikes. There's more to it than that. It's him pressuring him against the cage. It's not letting Thiago use lateral movement to get out. He really trapped him up against the cage. He put so much pressure on him. Thiago was the one that was in clinches, and that pressure got to him. He didn't have a lot of room to work, and he would go for a clinch, initiating into the strength of Islam. So it was a really good performance, but at this point, we know this guy is extremely skilled. We know he's of, top contender status. He just really needs to get matched up with these better fighters to really see where he's at.
I think we're at that point now, man. He's listed number 9 right now. I have no idea if this is updated or not. Mike, let's play a game here. I'm going to list the guys listed above him, and you tell me if you're picking against Islam. Okay?
All right. Okay.
Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor, Rafael Dos Anjos, Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Beneil Dariush, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and the champion Charles Oliveira. How many of those ones
All
are
right,
you picking against Islam?
I'm gonna tell you right now. You threw way too many names. I don't even remember the first
Well, I
two
thought you were
names.
gonna stop me
So
as I
let's
was
do
going. I'm like,
this.
man, Mike's
You
confident
say
in
a
this dude.
name.
You want me to take it over,
I mean-
Bob? I was listening to the
I mean,
names.
you really didn't give me you gave me like no moment to breathe
Okay, you know
to
what?
say
It's-
yes or no, man. Let's try
apologize.
this again.
Well, no, let's go. Okay, fine. Let's do it again here. We got
Thank you.
Dan Hooker,
Thank you.
Conor
I'm taking
McGregor.
Makhachev.
Okay, Conor McGregor,
Makhachev.
Rafael Dos Anjos,
I'll go with Dos Anjos on that.
Tony Ferguson,
It goes to Tony Ferguson. No, I'll take Makhachev.
Michael Chandler,
Chandler.
Beneil Dariush.
Dariush. That's just for you, Bobby.
I wouldn't pick him. Justin Gaethje.
Pick Gaethje. So I think from this exercise, what we're getting, at least on my end, is that he's definitely a borderline top.
Yeah,
he's
you need
borderline top
someone.
five.
You need somebody between him to fight somebody between 5 and 7, 5 and 8 to see where he's at.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm not saying he's not ready to fight a top 5 guy, but I don't think yet, just based off who he's fought in his last 2, that he deserves to fight a top 5 guy yet.
Stefan, where are we at with this guy? I mean, we got to get him to fight one of these guys. I mean, I saw him calling out Dan Hooker, and I know why Dan Hooker doesn't want that fight because I've seen Dan Hooker fight before. But he's got to fight these guys, right? This is where we're at.
It is where we're at, and I think I actually slightly disagree with Mike, where I think all the way up through Dustin, I think it's fair to say it's somewhat closer to a coin toss.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you might even if I might talk myself into a Gaethje or a Dustin over him, he adds enough interesting elements and wrinkles that I conceivably see him beating all of those guys as well.
You don't
It's
feel
not like I
confidently.
clearly, yeah.
I apologize, Stefan, but you don't feel confidently picking against him in basically any fight you see. That's where
He has. Like, I could totally see him stifle Dustin, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying he's a Beeb level, because honestly, we might not ever see that level again. But I have seen what Dustin looks like when he can't get up, when he can't fight the takedown. I've seen him. He's great when he can be the offensive initiator, but defensively on the bottom, he's not quite as dangerous, you know? And the Dagestani style isn't necessarily, it's about control more so than it is assuming like grappling domination. Though they'll take it if they can get it, right? They will hunt subs.
Absolutely.
But so yeah, I totally think he has an argument against all the top 5 of the division. And if we've given him a main event slot, be it a card that I chose not to watch, you know, like you said, Bob, let's be real about the Q rating of this card was not great if you had anything else to do. So I didn't see it, but the fact that if he's gotten that far, I have no problem with sticking him any of those guys. There's going to be guys in waiting. But right now, he's not desirable to fight because he's the guy chasing up. No one wants to punch down on the rankings, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mike, you wanted to get back in on this.
Yeah, just one quick thing that I think the reason why I'm still a little hesitant just to say that he should fight any of those guys is one thing I want to be very careful with is just thinking of him as Khabib Light, and that, you know, just because he has a Sambo style and he's from Dagestan and, you know, Khabib's in his corner, that we're basically just going to be seeing the second coming of Khabib Nurmagomedov.
You know, that's a good point, Mike, because we also have had a bunch of other Dagestanis, and they were good. Like Rustam Khabilov was good, I remember. There's a couple other good guys. There's only one Khabib. We have no other champions. No one else is getting title shots these days. So, yeah. Marcus, we want to talk about the return of the Cupcake, Miesha Tate.
Yes, you have to.
And real quick, just, you know, thank you to Marion Renault for providing us a couple of good years of entertainment in there, man. Happy trails. Enjoy your retirement. But Miesha Tate looked great, Marcus.
Yeah, you know, leading up to the fight, she was saying, you know, this is Miesha Tate 2.0, which is something that you hear a lot of fighters either coming out of retirement or having long stints of inactivity will say they kind of like revitalize themselves or evolve their fighting game. And, you know, the proof's in the pudding. And in this cake, it's in the cupcake, because she looked fantastic in this fight. Physically, she looked, I mean, and this is, you know, Miesha Tate has always been one of the pioneers, female fighters who's always been in great condition, always has a ton of heart and a good gas tank to go along with it. You can credit that to her victory over Holly Holm, who snatched victory out of the jaws of defeat in the 5th round by getting a rear naked choke. But she looked great in this fight. I think big improvements have been made in her stand-up, and not just her hands, the accuracy, but a lot of it is footwork. She was able to dart in and out of range really well in this fight. She was able to land a lot crisper strikes than we've seen in the past.
Yeah. In the past, I felt Miesha's movement was, I'm not trying to be mean, but it was bad. Cause she looked uncomfortable standing. I felt for years, she looked very comfortable in this one. Just much more fluid.
And this isn't to say, she's some flawless fighter. Renault was able to get, land right hands fairly consistently in the first round. But, Miesha Tate's bread and butter has always been her wrestling game. It's a really fantastic base to have in female MMA. To be able to take your opponent down and control them, has gotten her very far in her career. And, while the stand-up, I think, was very close, they were both, landing decent shots on each other. Tate's ability to get those takedowns, get on top, control, and do some damage. I think it was in the second round she was able to land some better ground and pound. And in the third, I didn't think the TKO stoppage was super warranted. It was more of a stoppage of position.
She was stuck.
Basically, she had her back and was, landing consistent shots, but there were arm punches. And, as she was kind of turning back to go into mount to try to defend herself, the referee stopped it. And I don't think it was a horrible stoppage or anything. But it wasn't.
I wish they hadn't, honestly, because she'd never been stopped before, and it was her last fight. That's the only reason I was I didn't want to take another 2 minutes of beating or whatever it was, or.
Yeah, I'm actually totally with you, Bob. I felt the same way. It is her last fight. Maybe give her a chance to try to do something spectacular. It really probably wasn't going to happen. We hadn't seen anything in the last 2 rounds that really showed her ability to get back up and change the pace of the fight once it hit the ground. So Tate was probably going to win. The referee might have just stopped some extra damage, and at her age and stuff, there's no reason to take a wampling at your last fight. So yeah, it wasn't egregious, but it wasn't one where I was like, yeah, Tate was just smashing her face in. She was just landing some unanswered blows, and there wasn't a good showing of intelligent defense until when they were about to stop it. So it was a great showing for Tate. She has aspirations to fight for the title. From what I saw in this fight, I think she can get that title shot. I just don't see her beating Amanda Nunes. The stand-up.
The woman who took her belt?
Who took it from her, yeah. And that has reigned, in 2 divisions since Miesha Tate's been gone for 5 years. But I will say, we were very critical, and I pointed out a lot, how much in Conor's fight he had kind of lost a step, being away from the game for so long. This is a game that evolves extremely quickly, and athletes, find new techniques and new ways to exploit their opponents. But Miesha Tate looked just as good, if not better than ever. So I was thoroughly impressed after a 5-year stint away that she looked as sharp as she did. I mean, ring rust was furthest thing from the conversation when you were watching this fight. She looked like she's been fighting the whole 5 years just in a different organization or something. So she looked great. I have all the confidence in the world that she's going to be a contender and can potentially get a title shot if the matchups line up.
I think one thing I would note about it, not that it makes it any less impressive that the rust wasn't there, that she came, but it's when I heard that she was only 34 years old that I realized, she walked away really young.
Absolutely.
This age in the women's division is kind of the prime years for a lot of the fighters. This is where, a lot of them are really leaving their marks and legacies. So even though, everything Mark said is accurate about her having to come back from this layoff and just really get back in the swing of things, but I think that's kind of the upside of it where, maybe she does have a run in her is she's young, or at least she left young. So, she's still fresh, didn't put too much mileage, too much damage on her. She's not someone who's kind of coming back because there was nothing else they could have possibly done and they really need it, right? Because we've seen fighters like that.
She was VP of ONE FC, right? She would be a VP of there. She had stuff to do.
Yeah, we thought she was when they announced she was going to fight for the UFC. We were like, wait, is there a conflict of interest here? But I guess maybe she stepped down.
Mike, we know the state of this division. There are, there are women out there that Amanda hasn't crushed yet. As Aspen Ladd's coming back, we'll talk about that in a little bit here later. We got, I don't think Irene has fought Nunes yet, Irene Aldana. Realistically, she just beat number 12, Marion Renault. Miesha Tate's very, very popular. How many wins to her title shot?
I think one more win. You give her someone that's within the top 5, like between top 5 to 10. If she's able to beat that person, Miesha Tate still has the name cachet that's all she would need. She was a former champion. She had what, a 2-fight losing streak from when she lost. It was she lost to Nunes and then she lost the decision against Pennington.
Yeah.
So it's not like she would be coming off a long losing streak or anything like that.
I mean, I'm pretty confident Juliana Pena.
I don't think it'll take that many fights.
I think Juliana Pena's got a title shot off one win right now, quite frankly. Yeah, Stefan, I was going to ask you the same question. I think we got a bit of a.
Well, I was just going to finish saying that it's a combination. It's a combination of the name recognition that Miesha Tate has, and not necessarily that 135 is thin, but it's not exactly heavy either.
Stefan, one fight, or you think it's going to get another one after that?
It's probably fine with one fight, to be honest, if Miesha wants it, just because former title contender, and we don't really need to risk killing any interesting matchups, because I think we all thought retirement was a little closer for Amanda than it seems to actually be. It doesn't actually seem like she's really talking about it as much as I feel like we and other voices have talked about it for her. So, yeah, fresh, kind of interesting matchups. There's not a lot of them to be made, right? It's why Amanda doesn't actually get to headline any card she's on. She's always the co-main title fight, because we haven't really put, if not a compelling fight, at least one that even interested us on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, also on this card, Jeremy Stephens lost his 18th UFC fight. Jeremy Stephens has been in the UFC a very long time. I'm not going to steal another podcast.
I think he has 34. He has 34 fights, right, in the UFC.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm not going to steal another podcast bit, but I strongly recommend the co-main event podcast talking about Drakkar Klose's. That's his name, right? I was mixing him up with the other Klose. It's Drakkar, the one that Steven shoved. Drakkar.
Yeah, you're close.
Very good.
Thank you, Mike. I got like a lag talking to you, and you're just doing fucking jokes. But the bit they did about Klose on Twitter shit talking Jeremy Stephens throughout this fight, which was only a minute long before he got tapped out, is good shit.
I didn't catch any of that, Bob, but I felt like it's one of those things I just read the headline and move on with my life, but it gave me a chuckle, because all the headline was like, Jeremy Stephens says, I don't care for any of that shit that Drakkar Klose is about. And I'm like, not letting it go, huh, Jeremy? You shoved the guy, but you're still not about that guy's bullshit, huh? All right.
Yeah, you injured the man. Anyway, yeah, I didn't watch this card besides those top 2 fights. But 7 straight finishes on the damn card, the entire main card. So it's kind of what you want from a fight card of little consequence. MMA news this week. It's official, guys. Nick Diaz is back. We talked about it last week. He'd be taking on Robbie Lawler, which I believe is at UFC 266, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Which will be headlined by Alex Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega. Co-main event being Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. And then Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler are going 5 rounds. And Nick Diaz...
What everyone really wants to know, Bob, sorry to cut you off. Did Mike do his homework? Are you coming in with a full report? Did you watch
the
Nick
fight?
Diaz and Robbie like you said you would last week? We said you got Fight Pass all lined up. Easy search.
I literally put the fight in a group chat I have with me. Him.
So we're handing in papers.
We'll put it up on YouTube for free this week in honor of the announcement.
Pass your papers forward. Does Michael Sanchez have a report to turn in?
I also put a GIF highlight reel in there too. I made it real easy.
Ooh, we got a little cliff notes from Mikey B. Maybe got a little something. You see a little.
Well. Let me give you a breakdown of the fight, and I didn't even watch the fight.
Jesus.
Robbie Lawler had a full head of hair, right?
You know what, Mike? He might not have even been
barely.
Barely.
Yeah, he was losing that fight a long time ago.
Nick Diaz was probably using a boxing-centric attack pattern against Robbie Lawler.
Okay.
and I'm assuming Nick Diaz won a split decision.
Okay, Mike, let me just.
He got like
Look,
none
man,
of it
my
right.
week got busy.
None
All
of
right,
it right,
there's a little thing called life, guys. All right, it kind of got in the way we get it on Fight Pass. All right.
I literally put the video in your pocket.
Look, Mike, the only reason anyone's coming down on you is you made the boisterous claim. No one said you had to do this. No one said, hey, Mike, you need to go watch it right now.
Boisterous claim? I don't remember it being boisterous or vigorous
your flag.
or
You
spirited
stuck that
at
flag.
any level.
One
Okay.
giant step for Mike Sanchez is what you called it.
I just want to
I
say,
believe it was a non-committal, at best, non-committal assertion. I would watch the fight.
Mike, do me a favor and leave and come back into this chat. This isn't an insult. You and me are having sync issues.
You can ask outside the classroom. Go outside the classroom for just a moment. Come right back in. I mean,
They're all hating.
Yeah, but while Mike's doing that, I was putting the spotlight. He never said he was going to watch it, but I wanted to see if he saw it. Because back in the day, it was a.
I don't know how you're part of the
turning
Nick
point.
Diaz army without that.
I'm sorry, Mark. In my timeline, Mike made a very boisterous claim. That's how it went in my timeline. I don't know how it played in your timeline.
Look, man, I am part of the Nick Diaz army, but I'm like the Gomer Pyle of the Nick Diaz army.
The casual.
I'm gonna kick you out of the Nick Diaz army. We took a picture with Nick Diaz. We stood in line to take a picture with Nick Diaz.
He was so goddamn high when we took that picture. He did not know how to spell Sanchez. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, bro, you're Mexican.
Never asked him to write a guy's name down before. What do you want from the man?
Mike gets an extension. We'll give you a 2-week, not even next week. If you come in, you get extra credit for watching the fight.
I appreciate that, Mark.
No problem. I put Mike on the spot. That was just for giggles.
But Mike, even if you have to guess all over again, you got it completely wrong this time. So that eliminates some of the possibilities.
I heard this was going to be the co-main event at first, and I'm like, oh, they must have misspoke because there's 2 championship fights. Is there a chance my girl Valentina gets so disrespected, someone said it, that she is the third fight?
That's the third fight.
That would be tragic. Good Lord.
Whoever her opponent is, it's not interesting, and that would be the reason why.
Poor Lauren Murphy. It's true.
Yeah, that's not
poor
interesting.
Lauren Murphy.
That's not interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited though. That's gonna be a big one. That's gonna be in September at the T-Mobile Arena. Ooh, maybe I'll go to that. Me and the Nick Diaz army. Maybe Mike will be there if by that point he's got his status, confirmed, and they don't try to kick him out for never seeing the fucking fight that made this man. All right, let's pick this card, and by this card I mean really the main event, and that's what I'm here to talk about. TJ Dillashaw, about 2.5 years ago, said he was going to go kill the flyweight division, move down from 135. And he did. Well, he went down to 125. He didn't kill anything. He got knocked out in 38
his career
seconds.
a little bit.
He got knocked down in 38 seconds. He cheated, got busted for EPO. And this isn't like I took a bad supplement. When you get popped for EPO, that was very much your intent. Which let me start off and saying, Mike, that's a mistake. If you're going to cheat, you got to you need an excuse, a valuable excuse, and this was not the way to do it.
Well, if you get caught with EPO, what excuse can you really give? Like you fell, tripped, and landed on the syringe full of oxygen, or whatever it is they use for EPO.
No,
I know the answer to this from TJ. So I'll give you that in a second, Mike. A little preview of what I'll say.
I was gonna say you don't do EPO. Take Stanozol. Everybody takes Stanozol. It's in everything. It might be in the apple I ate earlier today. That's the way to go. But Stefan, go ahead.
Isn't that like the steroids from like the 80s, Stanozol?
That's the one Fei Zhao gets caught with.
Yeah. It's from the late 90s.
Traditional in a syringe. You stick it in the ass. He does the real basic stuff. He's not on that high level cream yet. No, we kind of glossed over MMA news this week because admittedly it was light. But one of the headlines again that I kind of laughed at was Mark alluded to this. Have you heard talk about TJ? He offers no excuses. In fact, he says it doesn't matter. He acts like it's not a big deal that he did steroids. He's like, yeah, they didn't make me better, though. He's like, I'd be this good without them. He's like, you think I really would challenge tough people if I needed a boost? That guy has not owned up to his mistake whatsoever. It's honestly, it's quite John Jonesian, to be honest. Like, TJ does not give a fuck that he cheated.
John
he does not like
passes.
to talk about that he cheated, and he says, "Why are you bringing up that I cheated?" He's doing the why you bringing up old shit defense when you ask him about his EPO usage.
Mike, you want to get in here?
If I may ask a question, stuff, because it seems like you may have watched the TJ propaganda shows that have been going on.
No, this is just TJ talking. If you give him
Oh,
a
this
mic,
is just
it's no
him
show.
talking.
This is just TJ being like,
Well,
yeah,
I
it
watched-
doesn't matter.
I
Nothing
watched the
matters that I cheated.
I watched the propaganda one, though, just to be clear. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, so maybe I will direct the question towards you then, Bobby. Isn't the whole point of that propaganda tour for him to like smooth out the image and, you know, make it not seem as bad that he was caught with a shit ton of EPO in the system? Like his actual words just go completely against that.
Yeah, it fails to do that. He looks like an asshole. It's TJ came off like an asshole before this, and TJ still comes off like an asshole. It's not that complicated. And look, we've on this podcast have made our feelings differently, almost a little bit different about what we feel about, you know, steroids or cheating, drug test in MMA. The universal thing we all say is you probably shouldn't have agreed to follow these rules if you weren't going to follow the rules. So he has tainted every championship win he's ever had, yada, 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 depending on how you view it. And you say he cheated this one time or he's been cheating for the entire time. If you ask some of his teammates, his former teammates at Team Alpha Male, they think he was on shit the whole time. But anyway, he's back. He was supposed to come back, I think it was 2 months ago, and he got a real bad cut. To fight Corey Sandhagen, a former teammate from a different camp who doesn't like him. So TJ's just making friends all around. This fight got delayed a little bit, but so TJ's been out of the octagon, I think it was January of 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
No. 2009, Bobby. It's been over a decade since we've seen this man.
2019.
There you
2019,
go.
sorry. 2000, was it January though?
Yes, let's go with that.
Okay, January 2019. 2.5 years not fighting. In the meantime, the whole division's changed and gotten much better. Quite frankly, lots of good contenders. One of them, as I mentioned, former teammate of his, Corey Sandhagen, who I believe is ranked number 2, right behind Aljamain Sterling, the best goddamn bantamweight champion ever, and Peter Yan. Let's just fucking get into it and make our picks. The betting odds for this one, though, Stefan, do you have him?
I do, and as we've previously stated, I do not respect FanDuel betting lines, so we will not be using those. But we'll use the MGM Grands betting line. Why? Because a lot of fights are there, so we've been to that bookie a shit ton of times. Why not use their lines? But that said, the line for Corey Sandhagen is the slight favorite, well, more than slight favorite, at minus 185 to TJ's plus 155.
I'm going to give my 2 cents here real quick. I'm not sure I would pick TJ in this fight if he wasn't coming off of 2.5 years off. TJ was a really good fighter, but these new guys, they're very... TJ was like the only one with power. I remember at 135. It was mostly him and Barao. These guys all hit hard. And Sandhagen is a very, very good fighter, and he's coming off of that disgusting knockout of Frankie Edgar. Not that Frankie's still Frankie, but goddamn, he killed him with that knee in 28 seconds. Looked upset that he did it. I'm all for Corey Sandhagen getting this win here and maybe getting a title shot, depending on when we get Aljamain and Yan actually back in the cage. But yeah, I got Sandhagen here. Stefan, what do you think?
I got TJ Dillashaw.
Fair enough.
You alluded to it, Bob. We all have a different feeling about performance enhancing. You choose to believe he was good because of EPO. I choose to believe because he spent his entire first championship paycheck on that hyperbaric chamber. None of us have a hyperbaric chamber for us to live in the way TJ Dillashaw does. That's why his blood is so oxygenated. When you look back at that TJ versus Alpha Male rivalry where what's his name? What's his name? No,
Cody Garbrandt?
Cody.
Cody Garbrandt. He's like, TJ's an asshole, and TJ's like, no, Cody's an asshole. And I think we all know the answer is that everyone in that.
Yeah, everybody's an asshole.
We're all a bunch of assholes in that.
It's called alpha male. I mean, come on, they all think they're the best.
I just want to say Joseph Benavidez is in our podcast intro. It was very. Well, that's the one we met him.
Didn't he leave though? He left. He
You
left
know
a while
what?
ago.
We met Chad Mendez and Uriah Faber. They're both nice to me. But that being said, everybody looks like an asshole in the media.
But I also a technical reason I'll pick him is you talked about his power, but with TJ on his run, it really wasn't just about power. He fought good strikers. He had great time. He had great timing and precision. His counters, his combos. Like when he knocked Cody out, Cody was coming off of the performance of his career. He looked like he had the best and fastest hands in the division, and his movement, his timing. He clowned the shit out of Cody in that first matchup. So, that's where the rust comes into play is will he be as sharp? Will he be able to do it at all? But, he did lose to Henry, but we all saw how bad that weight cut was, right? We all saw that he never should have actually tried to make that weight class. He looked god-awful. He looked like the bantamweight version of the one who cut down Bob,
James
Skeletor.
Irvin?
Yeah, James Irvin, one of the worst weight cuts I'd ever seen, and that's honestly what TJ looked like to me when he made it for the Henry. So he's back, where he made his glory in a better weight class for him. I could see him getting knocked out, sure, but I could also see him being the guy who was champion multiple times.
Do you think he's going to get a knockout, or do you think he's going to get a decision?
I have to kind of believe that this goes to a knockout one way or another. Just because with that long layoff and apparently not having EPO, maybe TJ can't last long enough to go to a decision. Who knows? But if he wins, I'd probably see a counter knockout of some kind.
Mike.
Yeah, so with this fight, the way I thought of it is so far, whose ceiling in the octagon has been better? Hands down, it's been TJ Dillashaw. However, that comes with the caveat of, well, that ceiling was aided by EPO, and everything that comes with that. Sure, yeah, possibly. Okay, because he was only cheating for that one fight. Yeah. Much like an unfaithful husband that gets caught cheating. Oh no, baby, it was only this one time. Yeah, sure it was. Okay.
Well, Mike, one of the times has to be the first time.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he got caught the first time.
First time has to happen a first time before there can be more time. So there was a timeline where it was the first and only time he had cheated. At that point.
That's definitely what happens. A guy who's never cheated not once immediately goes to EPO. He doesn't, there's no, starter drug there. Just right to EPO.
To use it equivalent, a guy that just starts cheating doesn't start with the orgy, okay? Like,
well, here's the argument for why
he goes with the one night stand in the motel. All right,
no.
He washes his penis in the sink, and then he gets into bed. All right,
defending TJ. No, he is the guy who goes from 0 to 100. Because what did I say after he get his first championship paycheck? He bought the speedboat. He bought the giant house. He bought the hyperbaric chamber. Of course, he's like, what's the fanciest steroid I can use? Not some basic shit. No, he's the guy who actually went into debt after becoming champion because he blew it all because he's new money.
Let me tell you, I did not see that hyperbaric chamber in the videos, and I was like, oh no, did he have to sell it? Because he hasn't fought in 2 years.
Like I said, he went into debt because he spent way too much money thinking that championship reign would reign for years.
We got off.
Who's your pick, man?
I am still going to be picking Dillashaw in this fight just because while he won't be the same as he was while he was on EPO, I'm of the camp where I'm just assuming that most of his title run was tainted by EPO. So I'm gonna assume that his highs aren't gonna be as good anymore. But he still has great movement that he showed when he was fighting last. I don't think in that aspect the division has passed him by. I still think he has a really big leg up on there. And also I think it'll be a close fight. And mind you, I want to win, so if you pick one, I got to pick the other in certain situations. You know, I got to hedge my bets, baby. You're muted, but
Mark.
Do it to me. Yeah, I knew it was coming to me. I'm the last one. Want to thank Mike and Stefan. I thought this was going to be a one-sided affair, which I was also gonna
Me too, man.
I've been I mean, look, it's been 2 years. I'm sure we picked up lots of new fans who don't know, the long history I have with TJ Dillashaw and riding and dying with that guy. And I guess over the last 2 years, it's died out a little bit because I am picking Corey, and it's not really because of the cheating. It has most to do with the 2-year layoff is a substantial, is a good long amount of time. And like Bob said, we've seen this particular division explode with new talent. And Corey Sandhagen has been that guy. I think if matchups were placed differently, if he got to fight a little bit more frequently, he could easily, in my eyes, be holding that championship right now. I think he's just as good as Peter Yan. I think he's better than Sterling. I think he's extremely dynamic. And with that dynamic stature, the thing that couples with it and makes it so impressive is outside of just being able to do the range of different types of techniques, which he's been extremely well versed in, he has the timing down. He knows when to throw the flying knee. He knows when to throw the spinning kicks and such. He's been extremely impressive in this run. I think it's going to be a really good fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not going to be upset if TJ pulls this out. I think if TJ comes out after 2 years and beats Corey Sandhagen, I would be thoroughly impressed. It's
That's
just
some
a long
Dominic
time.
Cruz shit, man. If he pulls that off, that's some Dominic Cruz shit.
I think it's better than Dominic Cruz because I think Corey Sandhagen is worlds better than, was it Mizugaki?
No, Dominic. I'm talking about Dominic beat TJ after 2 years off. He lost. He spent another 2 years after that.
Okay.
After he got.
Yeah, it's hard to remember his stints, but I mean, I honestly, Corey in my eyes could easily be holding the belt right now. This is number one contender status for sure in my eyes. Yeah, I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a really fun matchup because TJ, you have to assume in this time off, he's got to heal. He's got to rest up a bit. When he was champion, he was a fighting champion. He was pretty consistent throughout his championship reign. And, I think obviously it was ill-advised for, I still don't to this day understand why he wanted to go to 125. I mean, you really have to understand when you're coming in at 135 and he was cutting to make that weight, to basically lose like another 20% of your weight to get down to 125 was insane, And I mentioned it way back then.
Is a lot of weight when you're only 135.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like 20% of your body mass.
Yeah.
He's cutting to do that. I always thought it was insane, And when he popped, it was like, well, that's the only thing that makes sense because naturally I don't understand how this man who's already extremely cut, has very little fat on him, is going to lose 10 more pounds without taking organs out. So, and I think the performance he had there was not indicative of the skill level that he's at, but just how much that weight cut drained him. And that being said, it's been a long time. I think this game, especially at 135, has been evolving and changing. And it's going to be interesting to see how he comes in here and competes with, what I consider to be one of the very best guys at this division. So I'm going with Corey. I think it's going to be super competitive. If TJ wins this fight, fuck Peter. I was going to say fuck Peter Yan. He should get the title shot, but like Peter Yan got so fucked out of that. They have to settle that.
Okay, wait. Peter Yan didn't get fucked out. Peter Yan did that to himself on every level.
True. Everyone got fucked in that fight, I guess. But I mean, that they have to have that fight. We need to, Sterling needs to defend that. We need to get a clear answer on who is the best out of those two. And I think whoever wins this fight is clearly number one after that. They have to get that next title shot. And if that's TJ, if he wins here, he deserves it because Corey's right there.
Well, if you beat that guy, if he beats Sandhagen, it's gonna be hard to deny him. Yeah, my only disappointment in this would be if it was not a good fight. That's what I'm here for. This is going to be a goddamn banger.
With Corey, I mean, I don't think either of these guys have really... I mean, you'd have to go back into the annals of TJ before he really got his striking regimen up to have him have a boring fight. And Corey, I have not seen it. So it would be unfathomable to think that there'd be 5 rounds where these guys don't go after it and have an entertaining performance. That would, honestly, Bobby, that would be such a bummer. If this is a snoozer and they're just staring at each other for 5 rounds, I will be devastated.
Yeah,
Mike had a little nugget. Mike had a little nugget. I saw that finger. You got a little nugget for us?
It'll be hard for Dillashaw. I mean, Sandhagen, he's knocked out 2 top 5 bantamweights in his last 2 fights. So to Mark's point, that dude is a monster.
Word on the street is when these guys trained together, TJ was getting his ass whooped. Just saying. That's what the word on the street is. That we got a Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz situation with these two. But, Marcus, you're aware that Aljamain Sterling beat Sandhagen in 90 seconds, right?
Yeah, with the grappling. That was impressive.
No, I mean, you said he's better than him. I'm like, he might be, but the first fight is not indicative of
in
that
my
at all.
head, he's always better. But you're right. I absolutely completely forgot about that fight. He took him down and subbed him super quick.
Yeah, that was Aljo at his peak. Aljo was like, I'm fucking dudes up this way now. This is it. Aljo I know got neck surgery, but not like broken neck surgery, just cleaning shit up. I guess if we can get that fight before the winter, and probably a miracle, but that I think this fight, whoever wins this fight might be sitting around if we don't, if it's, that takes a little longer. But that's good. That's a big one, man. I've been waiting. The second they booked this fight, we all got excited. Corey's way bigger than him, by the way. Like, he's 5'11". And I think TJ's is 5'6", maybe 5'7".
How does he get down to that weight?
Skinny dude, man. It's like Tim Elliott was that size, and he was somehow making 125. All right, the other fight we're picking is Aspen Ladd. First fight since she tore her shit up. I think it was 2 years ago she tore her ACL and MCL, or 2 years ago was his last fight, but she tore her ACL and MCL. Taking on Macy Chiasson, who trying to run that UFC record. Goddamn, she got a lot of wins. She's an Ultimate Fighter winner. Did anybody know that?
He was?
Did anybody know that? Did anybody know that this woman is an Ultimate Fighter winner until I just mentioned?
In fairness, have any of us watched an episode of The Ultimate Fighter in the last 7 years?
5-1 in the UFC. Anyway, Stefan, betting odds.
Aspen is coming in at a pretty solid favorite at -200 to Macy's +165.
You gotta imagine that'd be closer to 3 or 4 if she wasn't, coming off of her torn apart knee. Look, I'm not familiar enough with Macy to pick her, and as I've mentioned, and haven't been able to in a year or so, Aspen Ladd, the best MMA Instagrams, just her walking with her dogs. That's it. Yeah, I got Aspen Ladd. It really says something that she's still ranked number 3 in the division after not fighting for this long. Says that the division's rankings are broken, probably. But yeah, people think very highly of her. So, what was her? Who did she come up? Who knocked her out? Jermaine knocked her out.
Durandamy.
Yeah, and then she beat Yana Kunitskaya. Bounced back from that. She's still incredibly young, 26 years old, out of Folsom. But yeah, I got Aspen Ladd. Steph?
I'm taking Aspen. I'm just not familiar with Macy at all, let alone her tough accolades. I will say when I looked her up, her record is surprisingly good. They actually have identical records, right? Or they both 8-1, 9-1 abouts. And yeah, you can't even say there's there's nobody on Macy's record because she's among the handful of fighters who sent Marion Renault into retirement, with that being her last win. So I'm not familiar with her whatsoever, but looking at her record, it's one of those, if she beats Aspen Ladd, she's the prospect now, right? She takes all that heat for herself with that win. So
yeah, only 29 years old. So
yeah, for not being familiar with her, it's a really big stage for her. So I'm taking Aspen because she's the prospect I'm familiar with. But it'd kind of be cool if this other girl comes and steals all that.
Miesha fighting either of these young women. I mean, I'm not sure you want to kill a contender, but they're both very young, so I think those would be good fights. Mike, who do you got?
Yep, I'm going with Aspen as well. I'm not as impressed with Macy's record as I think Steph might be. Yeah, she's won a lot of fights, and she knocked out Sarah Moraes, her first or second fight in the UFC. Not exactly something to write home about.
That's true. That's true. You don't write home about that. You drive there and tell them in person that you beat the legend Sarah Moraes. Yeah. Mike, put some respect on her name.
Honestly, you're right, Mike. Who gives a shit about 8-1 with 5 UFC wins? Whatever.
But you see, Dems is empty calories, Steph. All right, whole bunch of decision wins. No one cares about no decision wins. All right, we're trying to see knockouts, baby.
Not a lot of those in the women's divisions.
And to that point, that's what Aspen Ladd normally does. She has a fair amount of power, and I think even with a year off, she's still one of the tops in this division.
Marcus, clean sweep?
Yeah, it's a sweep. Unfortunately, I'm as ignorant as all the rest of us with Macy, which is unfortunate. I don't like picking fights where it's just I'm not familiar with the other combatants, so I'm not comfortable picking them. But what I will say is this is a great stage for her. I mean, look at where Bobby was ragging on the card. There's ragging to be had. This isn't the strongest card in the world. It is a fight night. But this is a co-main event. This is where there's going to be some eyes on her. And particularly for what I care for, my eyes will be on her. I'll watch this fight, and this is going to be, these fighters that have impressive records that are, prospects in their own right, they get these moments to shine where, it's very easy to get bogged down in these cards. Like this card, there's 12 fights. We're only going to watch a few of them. So there's a lot of talent on here that we don't see and don't get to analyze. And this is kind of her shot to kind of make a statement. A win over Aspen Ladd makes a statement for sure. Her keeping her ranking at 3, I personally think is just bad bookmaking or rankings overall. I mean, you shouldn't be that inactive and still keep your spot that high. But this is a huge opportunity for her to, really come into the public's eye and make a statement here. I think if she wins this fight, she potentially is in title contention, and I don't think a bad matchup is her and Miesha Tate potentially for number 1 title. But I do think Aspen Ladd's going to win this. She's shown enough to convince me that she is credible and will be able to beat Macy. But I'm really guessing against the unknown. So.
We're also a couple other names on this card. Macy Barber, her second fight since she tore her shit up.
Mm-hmm.
She lost.
See, that's honestly, Bobby. That's honestly, I used to get the two of them mixed up as both the Uber prospects, and they both, were knocking people out, then suddenly lost, tore their knees up.
Macy's the mean one, or she used to be. She used to talk shit, and now she came back. She said she's not going to talk shit. I'm like, it's half the reason I liked you. Macy's coming back. She lost a really close one, or what did she won one? I think she lost 2-1 to Grasso, if I remember correctly in that one. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but I remember that fight being relatively close. Her first fight back from injury. Fighting again, this time taking on Miranda Maverick. We also have Darren Elkins still getting that UFC paycheck. He's on this card.
Hell of a name.
Miranda Maverick?
That is a superhero name. The MM,
yeah.
that is a superhero name.
Mickey Gall, who we learned has the only true victory over CM Punk, because Mike Jackson got high, smoked that weed, failed that drug test, got a no contest. So
like
Mickey
the Olympics
Gall,
told us, that's a performance enhancer.
Hell yeah. I mean, against CM Punk, it's got to be. Because you're so excited at CM Punk, it calms you down.
He did seem high. He was having way too much fun beating the shit out of that guy. He's waving to the audience while he's beating the shit out of him.
And Sajara Eubanks is on this card. One of the not the curtain jerking, but second fight out. Last time her name was in the news was for her partner accusing her of some horrible things. Hopefully that all resolved itself. Yeah, I think they have fans going to this one. You can sign up and there's a drawing and a handful of people can go. I think it's a contest.
They had fans at this last one. I don't know if you noticed. They're at the Apex, but they put the tough bleachers out there, and they got 20 people, so you get a little pop every now and then.
There's a drawing or some sort of fan thing, because they have another one next week, which is Uriah Hall and Sean Strickland. That's another banger, quite frankly. At the Apex, and I don't know if we're still. I think someone said they're going to be at the Apex for the rest of the year. It's going to look real weird them doing that. But I don't know how far in advance you need to book this stuff. And I'll just say this. People who are new MMA fans, if you want to know what it was like being an MMA fan back when there was maybe 25 UFC fights a year, 5 cards, what you do is all these fight nights in the middle of the pay-per-views, you take the top 2 fights, and that was on one fight night card. That's basically what all this shit, this TJ fight, that Makhachev fight, the fight next week with Hall and Strickland, this all would have been one fight night. Back in the day.
Once upon a time, Dana White said he would never mimic the boxing model of 1 or 2 fight cards. That has long since passed that dream of yesteryear.
I remember there was a card a few weeks ago where someone said, there was an LFA card too, an LFA card had a bunch of old UFC fighters, and someone said, if you switch the title of these 2 fight cards, which one's better? And you're just like, oh yeah, we're just watching UFC anything. So it was like James Vick on the other card. You're like, yeah.
Like Mark and I pointed out about the last pay-per-view when that kid, Chris Moutinho, was signing the poster. and we didn't know who he was or what he looked like, and he's talking to some other guy signing the poster. We're like, who's either of these guys signing the poster? Why are you signing it? Your names definitely aren't on it, but yeah, there's a lot of
I saw Moutinho on the Pat McAfee show because they were just amazed by a man's face could take that much damage. And I was like, good for him, man. Getting some national press. You know, it's good to see.
Eat up those 15 minutes. They don't last forever.
I mean, he says he signed a 4-fight deal with the UFC. So they'll be cutting him after fight number 2 or 3. It's my guess.
depending just how bad the cumulative ass kicking he takes over these next 3 fights.
He didn't look like a large man. I suggest going down in weight class personally, but just saying. But yeah, no Bellator this week. They're going to be back next week, which I am, Marcus, I'm more excited for this fight Bellator's putting on between AJ McKee and Patricio Pitbull than any fight outside of the UFC. Easily. This is the one where I get the Showtime trial going, so I can watch this one. Yeah. That is the best fight they can do.
Yeah, AJ has proven himself over the years. You know, we knew he was the son of Anthony McKee, who is a great fighter, relatively unknown to the masses, and doesn't really fight like his father at all. You know, has a very different skill set. But I think in this last tournament, this is the final of the tournament. He really showed that, you know, he's of the talent and level to compete at the highest level. And, you know, I don't think it'll be too long before we see him in the UFC. I think he has the charisma and the star power that the UFC would want to pick up on and pay some dollars for, especially if he beats Pitbull. If he beats Pitbull, that's a huge feather in his cap.
I don't let this kid leave. I throw enough. I make him my new Michael Chandler.
Yeah, I mean, they could use it. Bellator has lost some, you know, of their original talent, and McKee is someone that they've been kind of grooming for a long time. This will be a huge test for him. But yeah, that'll be very excited to break down next week.
I'm not sure, Mike, if you remember AJ's dad, Antonio McKee. You and I used to watch him on HD Net fights and Access TV fights. He was just laying and praying, motherfuckers, every 2 or 3 months. He rang off, I think at one point it was 20 straight wins or something like that. Just laying and praying on dudes. And he gave him, and then everybody bitched at the UFC enough for him to get one fight. And then he got lay and prayed by Jacob Volkman. And then Joe Silva cut his ass right when it was over.
I will tell you right now, Bobby, I think you're referring to the days of Access TV when we lived together in law school. Yeah, I wasn't that big a fan that I was giving more than a cursory glance at what you were watching.
That's true. Only when Aoki was fighting and snapping arms. That's what we watched.
That was always fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. And the UFC is putting on another 1-fight card next week, and PFL has announced they're going to do pay-per-views and a challenger series, which has confirmed with all of us that it doesn't pay to be different in MMA. You just got to do the same thing as the fucking UFC. So, anyway, let's do stuff we like. Let's end with Loki, because it's everything else out of the way first. I'm just going to say I watched the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and it was a good show. I went 1 for 2 with my Money in the Bank winner picks. Really thought Liv Morgan was going to win that shit. Really, I thought I was more confident about the Liv Morgan one than I was about the Big E pick. And John Cena came back and everybody lost their mind. That was real cool. So WWE going out to SummerSlam with Cena, Reigns, probably Goldberg and Lashley. That might have happened on TV while we were recording this. Edge and Rollins, maybe Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch. Mike, yes?
So I just saw on Instagram that Goldberg came out and Keith Lee came out as well.
Good to know Keith Lee
is
back.
You're looking for some big hosses to challenge Bobby Lashley. It might be one of those two.
Yeah, sounds like that's happening. So the WWE is trying to fill up 65,000 seats in that new Vegas stadium. I really want to go to that stadium. It looks so cool, but I'm not going to SummerSlam. I'm not going to roll the dice that the air conditioning fails in August in Las Vegas and we all die inside that place. God damn. That's all I got this week. I don't remember what else. I mean, we'll talk about Loki at the end. That was great. Mark?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a few quick hits. I would be remiss. I should have mentioned it last week. Streets of Rage 4 had DLC that dropped this past week. It was called Mr. X's Nightmare. As far as DLC for independent games like Streets of Rage 4, which is, it was like a $15 game, I didn't really expect much, but they did add 3 new characters. And to be fair, the selection was a little disappointing just because these were assets they already had from the game. They basically picked 3 characters that were bosses and converted them to playable characters. Axel and Shiva, who were actually, originally in Streets of Rage 2 and 3. And then I think the other one was Estelle. She was a boss that they created originally for Streets of Rage 4. But I just have to say, Streets of Rage 4, when it came out last year, was, I think I said it then, and I'll reiterate now, easily one of the best beat 'em ups. And that really came into light for me when I had people over and we played 4 people local co-op. What a fun beat 'em up! This genre has gotten a little bit of a second life with smaller indie companies taking a stab at it. I mentioned, last year, River City Girls is another great one. Scott Pilgrim came back, but Street Rage 4 definitely stands on its own. And this DLC is quite expansive. Outside of just having these 3 extra characters, there's actually a 4th. You can unlock Rue, who is the kickboxing kangaroo from Streets of Rage 3. They added moves to all the characters that you can unlock by playing as the characters and leveling them up, essentially. They added new weapons, new stages, I think some new enemies as well. For $8, I've been thoroughly impressed, and it's been fun to jump back into just like a top tier beat 'em up.
What are you playing it on?
It's on PS4. I think it's on basically all the systems, including Switch. But for some reason, the DLC hasn't come to Switch yet. I think there might have been like a technical issue. I think I heard an article that the developers were working on it or something. There's some kind of snafu, but you can basically play it on pretty much anything.
I mean, I think Switch delays just sounds like they couldn't get their shit together because they're all there shaking in their boots about the Steam Deck. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, nice transition. I did want to mention
I'm here for you, brother.
Briefly. Yeah, I did want to mention briefly that this has been long rumored. There's been a lot of rumors that Valve, the people that control Steam, which is one of the major clients for people downloading digital games on PC, was coming out with a kind of portable version. So when they announced the Steam Deck, it wasn't the most surprising thing in the world. I think a lot of people have heard these rumors for a while, but it still was very interesting to see it, the design of it, its capabilities. I think it's very interesting that it's a much more open platform than something like the Switch or consoles, really, which are closed off. You can't, download whatever apps you want. They have to be certified from Sony. That means, certain things don't get through. The UFC doesn't have an app on PlayStation 4, which is disappointing. And I think its announcement is timed really interesting too, because at the same time, there's been lots of rumors about another iteration of the Switch, which they just announced before Steam Deck, that their new model is just called Switch OLED, which basically just has an OLED screen. The screen's a little bit bigger. I think the little dashboard thing that you can put in has Ethernet in it already, which is nice features. And for me, honestly, as someone that had a PlayStation Vita, an OLED screen is fucking nice. Like, OLED's pretty fucking cool. Like, having a Vita, I remember being like, man, like, I can't believe how much these colors pop. So I don't think this is a bad upgrade, but I think for the masses, it was disappointing. A lot of people were expecting a kind of 4K machine that's going to be able to at least rival with what's now considered the past generation of the PS4 and Xbox One. And to have a system that doesn't really have a lot more horsepower, I think really disappointed people. I think a lot of people are looking at the next Breath of the Wild and thinking like, man, this thing is still not going to run super great on this, because Breath of the Wild didn't run super great on the Switch. So to have this next version potentially still not run well, I think a lot of people were hoping they would have a version that would be a little beefier, that could run these games a little bit better. I think there's especially a lot of people in the PC realm where 30 frames per second is not acceptable. You're doing 60 or you're not doing it right. So to not have that big leap with the Switch, I think was disappointing. So I think announcing this Steam Deck, which is a lot of people have been, calling it the Switch Pro, or, what Switch should have been.
I mean, you can run emulators on it, for God's sake.
I mean, and it being an open platform it's
gonna be a Switch.
That makes it.
People are gonna turn it into a Switch.
It'll be better, because there's lots of things that people have been like, I wish they had GameCube games or N64 games on the Switch. They have a Nintendo and Super Nintendo library that you get when you pay for the online. But, this Steam Deck is going to be able to emulate basically, I mean, I would think everything up to the PS2 era. I think PS3 and beyond gets a little tough to emulate, even with the rig that's on the Steam Deck. But even then, your whole Steam library that, if you ever dipped a toe into PC gaming, you probably had a Steam account. You probably racked up a bunch of games you never played on the summer sale. I know I did. And as someone that doesn't play a lot of PC games, but there is a lot of games on PC that I can't play because I don't have a gaming rig or an Xbox console. All that stuff comes out on Steam and on PC. So it is very intriguing. It'll be interesting to see kind of how it does, how it sells, if there's any issues. One of the things I was concerned about, which they're saying that they think they're going to be able to avoid, is the Joy-Con drift or the analog drift that has plagued the Switch and PS5 and other systems. So it'll be interesting. I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. It's probably not something I'm going to get right out of the gate, but down the road when I need something to play PC games on, this is a viable option that's not quite as expensive or quite as taxing setting up wise as getting like a full gaming PC rig or a gaming laptop. I think the portability is really nice. I think it looks good. The buttons, the joysticks look of high quality. I think it's interesting they added the R4 and 5 buttons that are basically your ring finger and pinky finger. So I think it's doing a lot of interesting things. It'll be interesting to see how it fares when it comes out later this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy it until I saw a review. Just saying, Steam has put some other shit out too, and nobody did it, got it, and
Yeah, Steam has threw out a lot of things, and not everything is stuck. I think they don't do the Oculus; they do the other one, the other VR set, which I'm totally blanking on.
There's a reason you don't remember it.
The Index or something. I think it was called the Index. But they put out good stuff, but not everything sticks, and it seems like this has the kind of fervor where it could potentially be something really interesting. So yeah, I think give it a year, see where it's at, and maybe I'll dip a toe in.
All right, Stefan, what do you got this week?
Yeah, I think we're saving Loki for the end. On the anime front, we recently wrapped what is considered the spring season of anime. It is the 2-3 weeks into the summer season of anime now. I've mentioned this YouTube channel in the past. It's called My Mother's Basement. This dude, he does really great in-depth breakdowns, but what he does a couple weeks into every season, what I usually wait for is he gives you his new anime to watch this season. He's really good at breaking down, what you might like if you have different bucket of tastes, right? Are you looking for something more actiony? Are you looking for something more slice of life? So he really covers the full spectrum, puts out his list, mentions his favorites. So I've checked out maybe the first episode of 4 or 5 different series yet. Still too soon to see what's going to stick. The one I haven't checked out, but I will just mention because it's interesting, is it's on Netflix, and I don't really watch a lot of anime on Netflix. What he said was contender of the year it's called Godzilla, single state or single cell or something. There's a Godzilla anime on Netflix right now, and he's saying it's one of the best of the year. So just mentioning that one in specific right now because, like I said, Netflix is not normally a platform I check out anime on. The last one I checked out was called Yasuke, which was supposed to be about the first black samurai. I hated it. I absolutely hated it after one episode. So that didn't really sell me on Netflix, but always down to be proven wrong with something else. So got that on that front. Quick video game hit. I finally signed up for PS Plus, so I was catching up on some old stuff. They give you a lot of free games now, which is pretty cool. Not just it used to be 1 or 2 a month, but they have a whole inventory back library now of choose from a lot of these great games.
The PS4 collection.
Yeah, it's nice. So I picked up one Mark mentioned, Virtua Fighter, because that was a fighting game I grew up on back in the arcades. It is pretty fun. It's kind of a little more intuitive, and that kind of sparked my my fighting game kind of personal renaissance again, because I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm damn near close to. I've been watching a ton of videos for Guilty Gear Strive. It looks really fucking fun to me. I know Arc System Works is supposed to be one of the best fighting game studios right now. In terms of just how they do something, a lot of conversation around this game has been how they streamlined a lot of things to make it more accessible to casual fighting game players and not quite make it so time consuming as it is for the fighting game community, where you have to invest hundreds, if not thousands, of hours to actually get good at these games. Apparently there's a lot more simple systems, so more casual people can pick it up faster and enjoy it. I fucking love the soundtrack. So if you're familiar with the series, it's a very anime style, and it is just J-rock hype music for all the songs. It is a fantastic soundtrack because, if obviously I just recommended you anime, and if you watch anime, you'll love every stage song. It's got some wacky ass English lyrics in there that are really funny. But it's, again, if you've ever liked anime, it really hits all those like things that it checks all the boxes of why you like anime in the first place. So yeah, I've been watching fighting game tournaments of it, old footage of Maximilian Dude doing his online days dedicated to it. So I haven't picked it up yet, Mark. I don't know how much it's on your radar, but I'm pretty getting itchy about maybe buying it.
Yeah, no, Strive, I've heard really good things about. It is one of those things where it is, I mean, I totally agree with you. It reminds me, it would be like the evolution of like Street Fighter Alpha 3 with like, they have this stupid, crazy announcer. It just says like the most gibberish. I mean, I think I saw a YouTube video was fake where it just had him saying like stupid stuff like, let's go, Alabama Stampede. It's like, what are you talking about? But there's just a lot of fun energy. And obviously Arc System Works, they're the guys that did the Dragon Ball Fighters games. They're making some of the best like 2D art assets. And this game shines like no other. And it is a game that I think for casuals is a little difficult because you're talking not just like talking about doing moves, doing cancels. There's these things called like Roman cancels, and there's a lot of terminology that can put you off. But I have heard the onboarding's pretty good. I think it also uses rollback netcode, which means the online is very stable and good. So I'm looking forward to it for Evo. But personally, Guilty Gear has, for my personal taste, it's a little too anime for me. It's just a little too much. I can't get into these characters because they're a little too fantastical. But I'm looking forward to watching it at Evo. It looks really fun.
Right on. Stefan, you got anything else?
That's it until we get to the main topic. Yeah.
And Mike, sir, what do you got this week?
Yeah, I'll keep mine briefer so that we can just really, I guess, dig into Loki. It's a show that has already been canceled and was not able to be picked up by Netflix, that apparently people swear by and is in Netflix top 10. It's a show called Manifest. I decided to start watching it about 2 or 3 days ago. It's a show where this flight is coming back from Jamaica, and they hit some turbulence, and then they end up landing, and they discover that 5.5 years have gone by while they were in the air. And that's basically the premise of the show, and like people adjusting to that, where like, people's lives moved on, and people have developed like supernatural powers when it comes to like hearing voices in their head, which lead them to right wrongs and things like that. I'm about 7 episodes in, and I think if I had ever actually watched it when it was on NBC, I probably would have watched it every week as it came out. It's so far been a pretty compelling show, with a very good cast of people I've never heard of before. So that's always been very entertaining when a show is just really good and it's not just based off, that it's people that you've seen before. It's just really good writing. The supernatural stuff isn't too hokey and corny yet, so I appreciate that. For some reason, my Netflix actually just started playing out of nowhere. I had to stop that. But when you guys have a moment, give Manifest a shot. You should be able to find it on Netflix.
Right on. All right, folks. Loki finished this past Wednesday. We're going to talk about it, and if you haven't seen it, this is where we say goodbye. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to talk about Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw winner, and Bellator. But yeah, and let's get into it, though. People sticking around. Stefan, go ahead and let you spearhead this. Loki, go out there and making the folks happy with a season finale of consequence, quite frankly.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I think coming off of the other 2 shows, a big thing we kind of been saying to ourselves is to kind of curb our expectations in terms of, what we think these shows are necessarily going to be used for, right? But I think what this show ended up doing was it went and gave us what we actually wanted. We want consequence. We want stakes. Like, look, we're the super fans, right? If we're the ones following the shows week to week, we're the ones who really love the movies. And that said, I unequivocally loved the Marvel Universe. Even the worst parts of the MCU, I still like more than most movies because it's still comic book superheroes for me, particularly Marvel. That said, when I tend to be a little harsher, it is from a kind of a loving critical place of just because the source material is oddly, is often near and dear to me. So I'll be a bit more nitpicky in my complaints because I overall love it so much. That said, I've found, at least, when I've talked about some of y'all, our buddy Eddie who watched it, Mark saw it ahead of me, and one of the first questions I asked him is like, no spoilers, but do you think they landed the ending? And I don't know if this is how Mark necessarily felt, or if he was just playing it coy to not, tip his hat too much. But he's like, I think they did a pretty good job. Because after I watched it, I told Mark they fucking knocked it out of the galaxy, in my opinion. To me, this Loki series is top 5 MCU content. Like, I hold it to such high esteem because this show was absolutely everything I wanted these Marvel TV shows to be. It was really fucking weird, which is what was the appeal of WandaVision to me, right? They're going to do something different, experimental, that looks unlike any of the myriad of movies or TV shows we'd seen to this point, and they knocked it out of the park. We got the consequence, like you said, right? We're establishing one of the probably most important additions to the Marvel universe, and in the character we got, that is Jonathan Power. Is that his name? Am I saying it right? Or no?
Mayers, I think. Right?
Mayers, not Powers. Jonathan Mayers, of Lovecraft County fame on HBO, of which he's nominated for an Emmy. He was I didn't realize till after the fact, it clicked with me. He's the co-star of an indie darling, which won a myriad of awards a couple years ago in The Last Black Man in San Francisco. He's absolutely stunning as a dramatic actor in that movie. So yeah, like his scene stealing, scene chewing thing, performance at the end, I absolutely loved it. And the other thing that I just absolutely need to shout attention to, and I'm glad I'm hearing her name a lot, because this is the type of things that a lot of people can easily ignore. I mentioned what a banger of a soundtrack Guilty Gear Strive has, and I wanted to segue that into this because, I tend to be the one who gives music recommendations from time to time on stuff we like, and not to say the other fellas don't like music, they don't have their music they love. I think I just maybe care about music just a little notch higher. Like, I really love digging into deep the compositions, the background. But who I'm talking about is the show's composer, Natalie Holt. She's fucking phenomenal. This soundtrack is amazing. One of my nitpicking things throughout the MCU, non-memorable music. Even the Avengers theme, I don't think it's that distinguishable, to be honest. It's no Batman theme, it's no Superman theme, it's no Star Wars theme, like, where you just know the song, you know every beat of it. You could try to hum the Avengers song, you'd probably get like 70 to 80% correct, but you don't have it perfectly because it's not that memorable. Captain America's theme versus Iron Man's theme versus Black Widow's theme, can you even distinguish them in your head? But all the beats, all the soundtracks, whether the ending song, the mid-credits, the violin sad music beat, which circles back around as a remix. We had the classic Loki beat where they sampled Flight of the Valkyries into the Loki theme to really give it that extra oomph. Like, the use of the theremin, most commonly associated with the original Star Trek soundtrack, just being such a science fiction kind of staple sound. Absolutely phenomenally adored the music on top of everything. So yeah, like I said, it's a top 5 Marvel property for me. I put it up there with the best of anything Marvel's ever done. I absolutely loved it.
Mike?
So, what were your thoughts on the season finale? I guess not having very much in the way of action as you're normally used to with normal season finales for shows like this.
Yeah, if you don't mind me taking this again, I know I just talked a lot, but I think it's one of the best parts about this show. Because one thing, as I've rewatched all these Marvel movies countless times, I've done multiple rewatches of the MCU. There's something that Marvel fails at pretty much as equally often as they succeed, and that's the action. That's the third act action piece. A lot of times they actually kind of feel a little unnecessary. A lot of times they actually feel a little detached from the main story, where 2/3, the weakest Marvel movies, they'll have 2/3 of good character development, but then that big set piece at the end, it just doesn't hit right. Maybe the villain is inconsequential. You know, maybe, you know, like all the bad guy version of Iron Man, the bad guy version of Ant-Man that we never see again. Like some of those third act pieces, they don't always hit well. I think that was kind of one of the big complaints about WandaVision, right? Was, do we need the laser show in the sky at the end? It actually felt like it took away from the series, which was dealing with such heavy philosophical and emotional beats. So it's one of those things where maybe you could get bored of it after a while, but if this show was primarily about 2 or 3 people talking in a room, that's one of the things I found utterly captivating and charming about it. It's because the actor quality was so good. Give me a verbal back and forth between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. That's better than any explosions and spells to me. So, you know, I don't know that you could do this long running, but for this series, I thought it worked being minimal in action. Because when you think of Loki, he's mischief, right? He's the liar. He's the manipulator. So I don't need big explosions with this character.
All the action was last episode.
So
They did a lot.
I think that in a with a normal show, it may have been a huge disappointment just having an episode as the season finale where it's primarily just people talking, you know, 2 people on one side of a desk and one on the other, and you're literally introducing a character for the first time in that particular season. But in this case, it was perfect. One, how you alluded to before, that one thing that we were really missing, outside of Anthony Mackie actually becoming Captain America, which you kind of thought happened at the end of Endgame. Nothing really consequential happened in the first 2 Marvel Studio shows, whereas with this one, we likely got introduced to the next big bad of Phase 4, which would be Kang the Conqueror. And what's his name? Jonathan Majors, right? Jonathan Majors, in the half hour or so that he was on screen in episode 6, the exposition that they had for him explaining his character, the idiosyncrasies that he showed, I thought it was perfect, and I can't wait to see him. I think he's gonna end up being in the next Ant-Man movie. I'm excited to see what he's gonna be like as the next big bad for the Marvel Universe. So for that reason alone, I thought that the season finale was top notch.
Marcus.
Yeah,
I mean, we got the guys' thoughts. Listen, what do you think, man?
Like the guys, I really enjoyed the show. You know, I tend not to be super critical. Hearing analysis of the show, I think there's some things they didn't do quite so well. I think sometimes if you look at the character of Loki and where he was at the beginning of the show and where he ends up at the end, that arc is very curved and it happens in a fast amount of time. You know, it seems like they get him from villain to sympathetic, like anti-villain pretty quickly, and the motivation basically being like he sees how his life was going to end, and that really stirs him. And I think that's motivation enough, but I've seen that been criticism. I think what I really liked during for the show was that, you know, they're dealing with something that, as someone who's, you know, a fan of the comics and potentially where they're going with the MCU, like the multiverse is infinitely interesting. Like, because literally you can do anything, and we've gotten a lot of interesting characters from other worlds, and we've gotten storylines like Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars, where all these worlds kind of collide and they create, you know, the battle world and stuff. And I think that was a really fun comic arc. And to think, you know, I mean, really, the multiverse is where we get Miles Morales. It is where you get Spider-Gwen. It is where the writers of the comics can really flex some creative muscles and kind of say like, okay, what if I have creative freedom to do anything I want with these characters, because I'm not bound to storylines that happened already chronologically. So I think in and of itself, this is an interesting playground to play in. And I think the series does a pretty good job leading up to what I think, for me, what I really wanted, what they ultimately got. And I think in episode 5 was like, I want to see these different variants. I think that is the funnest part of the multiverse, is seeing like, and all these rumors of like Tom Cruise is going to play Tony Stark and something. I think that's a really fun aspect to think of, like, what about all these different versions, and to have episode 5 where he basically spoilers, of course, he gets pruned, and we realize that they're not actually just dying, they're going into this other dimension or whatever. And there's a bunch of different Lokis. You have Kid Loki there, you have the classic Loki, which I think was everyone's favorite, Alligator Loki, and this Thor Loki they didn't really touch on.
I just want to
President Loki.
And President Loki, which I thought was the real Loki, but that was just a red herring kind of thing. But go on.
Since you brought him up, Mark, that's what I want to ask everyone right now. We'll remove classic Loki from the conversation since he just got such a shining moment. It's easy to say he was your favorite variant. Of the more subtle Loki variants, which one was your favorite one?
Alligator Loki. He's an alligator.
Visually, the President Loki, I thought that would be, that was in the marketing materials a lot. I think that look in the suit that's kind of tore up was just visually kind of stunning. I thought Kid Loki was all right. I kind of wanted to know what the deal with Thor Loki with his little hammer, but they didn't really get into that. But otherwise, really the classic one just kind of stole. Like, it was just like, you want that universe as a fan. It's just like, just embrace the costumes. Like, we're not going to think it's silly. We love it.
Mike, which one was yours?
So, not for very different reasons. This was my favorite Loki, and I think it's just because Disney Plus, whoever their subtitlers were very scared to just call it what it was. But for the Black Loki, he was called Boastful Loki.
That is his character.
There was nothing else distinguishable about him besides just he's Black Loki. But nope, you got to call him Boastful Loki. So Black Loki. He was my favorite Loki.
Give me a show of classic Loki and alligator Loki. That's the show. They're just around doing stuff. I would watch that show.
My favorite of the random kind of like more Easter eggy variants was just because the randomness of it made me laugh for like 3 minutes straight. Is when they first when he's back at the TVA and they're just showing them the holograms. When it's Tour de France winning Loki, where it's just Tom Hiddleston, but he's dressed as Lance Armstrong holding the giant cup trophy. I'm like, oh, that's it. His variant is just he's a pro cycler in Europe. That's his whole shtick.
I got a question. Was for anybody else, Owen Wilson just? I mean, I'll say for me the best part of the show, but he was just brilliant in this. Or was it just me alone? Happy to see Owen Wilson.
I mean, Owen Wilson is a great actor. Anytime you see Owen Wilson in something, he's gonna do really well in it. So, I mean, I don't think I was in love with him as much as you were, but I mean, I thought he was great.
The only episode I didn't like was the one without Owen Wilson. That was the only episode I didn't enjoy.
I mean, Bob, like, I don't. You're clearly you're not listening to the internet chatter if you think you're on any kind of island with that, because. What did I say the show is but just a series of small conversations, right? And the Fantastic Four of this show are, I don't know her actress name, but the one who plays Sylvie, Tom Hiddleston, the titular Loki, Owen Wilson's Mobius. And by the way, I've now come to the mind, Mobius is a great dog name, and that is a dog name that I will bank away for some time. And then, of course, our finale episode, Kang / Immortus / whatever variant this man will come to be. But, so all of them carried their weight. They all carried their scenes, right? Like, so much of the charm of these early episodes was the back and forth banter and kind of like budding bromance of, Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson. And that's why that little swerve at the finale hits so hard, right? Because when Owen Wilson's Mobius looks at him and doesn't know who he is, and he's like, who are you? Where are you from? That moment hurts like hell because we're like, oh man, these guys are friends now. They hugged it out. Like, these guys are bros. So, yeah, I think Owen Wilson has gotten plenty of love for his part in this show.
Yeah, I also liked Owen Wilson quite a bit. I think he really, him and Tom just have great chemistry. And at the same time, though, it is kind of Owen Wilson just playing that character, that kind of, could you have him in a script where he doesn't say whoa or whispers at some point? He's always whispering,
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I did just want to point out, we did already talk about, I think introducing Kang here was a big surprise because we hadn't really had, like Stefan had mentioned in the other series, these kind of big reveals that seem to kind of shake the MCU. And I think outside of him just kind of like chewing up and eating up those scenes, it's going to be really interesting in hindsight to see this version of Kang. And we're assuming that's his name, right? But like we know he's playing Kang the Conqueror in one facet or the other. But to see this version of him where he's basically at the end of his rope. He's kind of tired with all the time travel and the work. And I think when we see him either in Ant-Man or Multiverse of Madness or what have you, it will be a very different portrayal of that character. It will probably be a lot more aggressive, a lot more authoritative. It was really fun to see him in this kind of character in this time in his life where he's kind of lost control and is giving up and is just letting what happened happen. And I think that'll be a really interesting juxtaposition, 5 years from now when we're in, the Secret Wars and this other things where he is the big baddie and he's kind of this big badass character. To see him being very comical and lighthearted and kind of fun, I think down the line this performance will be more intriguing than we might even think now, because I do feel the character is going to have a very different type of attitude towards the heroes. And again, this is just really, it's been so fun watching the MCU evolve and grow over the years. And we've talked about it many times, but to see them kind of nail Guardians and to understand like, okay, this studio can do something weird and be successful and get everyone on board. How far can they push it? And the multiverse is kind of as far as you can go with really weird, crazy shit. And Loki was a good dip in, first toe dip in there, and to see, can they kind of land this stuff on a smaller scale, on a lower budget, and they probably will have with these really big movies. And they did a fantastic job. So yeah, I've always personally, the Disney Plus shows have been must view watching. I wouldn't skip any of them, even if they don't have huge ramifications, because we're seeing a quality of actor we don't see on the small screen. You don't see Tom in TV shows that often, or the people, Sam and Bucky playing these characters on like a mini series. It's really fantastic to see these big actors getting a lot of time in these characters' boots and to really see them kind of flourish. So it'll be interesting. I'm just as, if not more, excited for Hawkeye and Miss Marvel, because I think these shows have really proven themselves that they have the budget, they have the chops to be just as good as the movies. But have more time to develop the characters, which I think has been fascinating.
Right on. So what if? That's next?
Yeah, that's an animated series that I think is going to be really fun. Obviously, probably won't have the overarching kind of narrative bites, because What If is a comic book series where it's basically, what if, Uncle Ben got bit by the spider instead of Peter Parker? And I've tried to read those comics.
Is that a real one?
I think that might be. They do a lot of weird shit. And
yeah, I would read that one. That one sounds interesting.
I've read some of them, and they just haven't been that good. Like they're about things I don't understand, and it's like there's a different alternate version. I have no idea. But
there's a whole series of so and so kills the Marvel universe. Hulk's done it, Wolverine's done it, Deadpool's done it. They all did it for different reasons.
Yeah, but they have shown in trailers some of the, and I think they're going to be kind of self-contained episodes. And one of the ones that they have shown a little bit of is Marvel Zombies, and I'm excited for that. I actually really enjoy the Marvel Zombies comics. I think what makes it kind of interesting, outside of just having a zombie outbreak where superheroes are getting bit, I think a really interesting creative arc they've done with that I hope they keep for this What If, is that the zombies still have their mental faculties. They're just extremely hungry and they can't stop themselves. So in the first Marvel comics, Peter Parker is in extreme depression because he ate Aunt May and Mary Jane, and he didn't want to, but the hunger is too much. So I think they have a lot of interesting wiggle room in that series. So that'll be like a fun one-off. And then, I think Hawkeye and Miss Marvel are going to be interesting, but obviously we're not going to see kind of like this big overarching storyline with Kang in the multiverse until Doctor Strange and Ant-Man. It seems like there's going to be certain movies that kind of hit that stuff.
Well, I can't speak to some of those other series, but Kevin Feige did recently say that what if it's not just going to be this thing that they did. They're like, yeah, this is what the variant multiverse is now. So They are saying like, yeah, everything we're showing you in What If, just think of them as variant timelines now.
Potentially could maybe come into play later.
Yeah, so if they animate something, but I think they're basically saying is like, yeah, this is the timing of this is intentional, because now that we've introduced the idea of branching timelines, let's take a look at some. But how they'll present it.
How are we gonna do Miles Morales? Because like they've made reference to the Prowler right? Gambino played the Prowler in the first Spider-Man movie, right?
Homecoming, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so they've backdoored this. I mean, so it's not even a thing. They don't need. I mean, I guess it could be, but it doesn't have to be a multiverse thing. It could just be T exists. I mean, do we not? Does Marvel not have a firm enough grasp?
The MCU is its own timeline, so that's why the MCU doesn't match any comic book canon perfectly, because they just gave the way the main comic universe is Earth 616. I forget the designation, but they've basically said
what I'm
MCU
saying
is its own designation, so they can say any character exists in this universe already if they want to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because of the way they did, and again, this is the Sony deal with Spider-Man and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
if they put Prowler in the same universe as that Peter Parker, does that mean we're gonna get Miles Morales? I mean, we can now have options. We can do him as in a variant timeline, or we can just do him as part of the
Well, in
Multiverse
fairness,
is a cheat
you could have done him. You could have done him in the regular timeline itself, because Homecoming came before the blip.
Yeah, I'm saying they have options now.
So you could say, well, Miles may be just like a really small kid before the 5-year gap, and now he's like, shit, maybe he's like Peter's age in this time in this universe. I don't know.
Yeah, Bob, you kind of hit it. The biggest monkey wrench in there is that Sony kind of owns the Spider-Man franchise, and they've been playing nice with Marvel, and the last couple Spider-Man movies have been coexisting in that timeline. So I think we're going to see something interesting in No Way Home. They've already talked. I mean, there's lots of rumors about other former Spider-Man reprising their roles and having that kind of bleed in. And that could be where they, have a Miles character. But I honestly don't know, like, if Sony wants to run with that themselves. I mean, obviously they did Into the Multiverse with Miles, and that was animated feature was fantastic, and it got a lot of people interested in the character, so they might not be so willing to let the MCU. I don't know.
I mean, they're making a sequel to that also. They're making a sequel to that, so
yeah, which should be interesting. I mean, I like Stefan could probably attest, I'm really invested in the MCU, so I hope that No Way Home they do branch into something with Miles, but I honestly don't know. With Sony, it does get kind of muddled. They want to and they muddle it, and then you look at their products that they're doing outside of the MCU, like the Venom movies and this Morbius movie, and you kind of get like, maybe they still haven't really have that ship tied down as good as strongly as Marvel does. So it'll be interesting. I think the next.
Did anybody else see Venom? I didn't see it.
No,
did you guys see Venom? Stefan, what'd you think?
I saw it. Venom is like a fun action movies in the late 90s or early 2000s. It's so incredibly tropey. Like, this is going to make me sound pretentious as fuck, but real common people like this movie, right? Like, it's the reason that A Fast and the Furious becomes the big hit is it's like, I say I'm the type of person, even though I don't necessarily like those movies, but I can usually respect and appreciate those movies. As you guys say, right? It's dumb fun. But there's a segment of the people who are like, no, that's a good movie. That's what a good movie looks like. And that's who enjoys the Venom movie. Like, if you're a comic book fan, there are so many fucking problems with that movie. But if you're just looking for a dumb good time and don't like to think too hard, Venom, it was great. It was hilarious. Like, it's fine. It's one of those movies, if all I had to compare it against was the Singer X-Men movie, then oh man, one of the best superhero movies ever made. But now that I've seen what good superhero movies can be, it's like you're kind of a relic of a different era of superheroes.
Yeah,
it's also way too dark. There's a certain whole big battle of the symbiotes at the end. I cannot tell any of them apart. Like, I don't know who's fighting who, which one's the good symbiote, which one's the bad symbiote. It all looks the same. But it's in San Francisco, Bob, so we like that.
I was gonna say, Mike. I think Stefan just sold us on having to watch this Venom movie, right? Giving it the Fast and the Furious comparison.
I mean, he said it in such a derisive way, though.
I know. I really that was one of the more pretentious.
Let me ask you a question. How about is ultimately family the most powerful thing in Venom or not? That's really how we measure movies now.
I guess you could say that the symbiote Venom and Eddie Brock, they did form a bit of a familial bond. So I do think family has won the day in this one.
There we go.
And also, Stefan, you said, you're going to, at the risk of sounding pretentious, but man, I feel like the only thing missing from your your review of Venom was just like a monocle, man. Like, Jesus,
I mean,
get
like
up
you
off
said,
all your
it's-
ivory tower.
It's not a visual medium, but I'm clearly snacking away on my charcuterie board as we speak and as I make these points. But yeah, I know that sounded real assholey, but it's the best way I could convey my feelings about that movie.
I'm not gonna lie. I tried watching the movie once, and I couldn't sit through it. And I can normally sit through any superhero movie. I got like a quarter of the way through, and I'm like, I'm done with this.
Is it on a legitimate streaming platform, or is it other places? Does anybody know? Honestly,
I don't know because it's Sony. They don't have their own thing yet. So.
Sony, yeah, I had to go to Netflix, like fucking France, to watch Far From Home, man.
Yeah, Sony is a free agent. It could be anywhere or nowhere.
Yeah, it's anyway.
It's like-
all right,
It's like Schrodinger's cat of movie licenses.
very nice. All right, guys. We're gonna end this podcast as I sit here very angry at Discord for the struggles it's given me over the last hour and 40 minutes. We'll be back next week. We're talking about that Bellator fight with AJ McKee and Patricio Pitbull. See if there's anything else good going on that card. I'm a little bit disappointed in Mike not bringing up Rampage Jackson and Shannon Briggs shit talking each other about a boxing match. I really thought Mike was gonna get us going with that. Is that real? Are we doing that? Real quick, is that happening?
I don't know. Shannon Briggs, he shits talks someone like once a month. That dude's like 55 years old. He needs to stop. Or get on track.
Probably knocks out Quentin's fat ass still, unfortunately. We'll see if anything goes on with that. We'll talk about Uriah Hall getting a fight with Sean Strickland. We're going to see if Aspen Blad's really back. You know, we'll see maybe a next fight for Miesha Tate there, the winner of that one. And we're going to see if TJ Dillashaw bounces back from a 2.5-year layoff. Until then, I was Dr. Law. That was Kid Presentable. That was DJ Mark. And that was Lavender Gooms. Thank you all so much for listening. Stay safe. Get vaccinated. Yada, yada, yada. Peace out.
Yep.
Cheers.